bright lights and blue blockers seems like the best option.
That's right.
So I am very excited to talk to you today. I really am the world's biggest dork here. So let's see here. Are we doing video this morning or no?
That's up to you.
I would like to do video. I think it converts better. I think that people connect. I'm just trying to see. Somebody jacked with my computer and it's doing all kinds of crazy. So my deal is that my whole idea behind this little summit that I put together is trying to get people kind of back on track with their wellness. Lots of people do crazy things like set up horrible failure suggestions like, oh, I'm going to do a New Year's resolution. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And they don't have any concept of the health or wellness it takes, never mind having a plan. But I'm very interested and pretty invested in what you do and what you have to say. I do a lot of telling people for 20 years that I'm solar powered. People are like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm like, no, that's why I can't live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm solar powered. And I've proved it time and time again that, the sunshine is critical to my health. And I love your message. I just want to scream it from the rooftops.
Yeah, it's not a difficult message to get. It's just modern life has convinced people that it's not that important. Right. It's all about diet and exercise. So that's the number one big problem for quantum biology. People actually are stunned at how simple the message really is. And then when you want to learn how it works, then they start to realize, well, maybe there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Right. And to me, that's the key. I just have a fundamental belief people will not change their behavior until they understand a little bit of the why. So you have to explain to them, from a physics perspective, why it is and how nature works in order to get them to change. Only then will they consider, a change in their life. That's it.
And I agree with you. And it's funny that the fundamentals are taught in school. I mean, if I ask I
don't think the fundamentals are taught in school anymore.
I just mean about my mitochondria. If you ask my 16-year-old daughter about the mitochondria, she gets really excited and says, the only thing I remember from high school science is the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Right.
She beams at me. I'm like, okay, well, that's the basis. That's about as basic as it gets.
I think that's the basics that everybody learns. In fact, I hate to say it, that's probably all that doctors after medical school and residency really know too. They really have no clue how a mitochondria fundamentally works. And that's part of the reason why we are really bad at taking care of modern diseases, because all of them are based on mitochondrial damage. That's the irony.
Yeah, that we're looking at gene expression, and really, if you could just fix your mitochondria, your genes aren't going to go haywire.
Nobody seems to get that realization. I mean, it's pretty obvious in the literature that that's exactly how it works. The software runs the hardware, and we have this absolute myopic focus on the hardware. That's the problem.
Do you think that maybe that's just I can see this, so I can see this tumor, so I'm gonna attack it visually, but I'm not gonna go down to that microscopic level?
I've actually tried to dissect this many different ways to try to make sense of it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it's probably gonna be very unsatisfying for you to hear. I think people are lazy. I think scientists especially are exceedingly lazy. And I think they're lazy because they've subtracted out curiosity from the mix. I mean, this should be the biggest scientific question on the planet right now. Our species, 8 billion of us, are getting sick at record rates, and we have no earthly idea why. This should stop everybody dead in their tracks and say, maybe we need to worry about this a little bit more, but instead, we're sidetracked by, politics, Kim Kardashian's ass,
Ugh.
Netflix speeds, and global warming. I mean, to me, when you really understand the proximal cause of what is going on, and I hate to say it, it goes back to nature versus nurture.
Right.
No one realizes that the environment really is part of the software that turns on and off the genome. And it's kind of like for the last 10 or 15 years, all the epigenetic research has showed that this is in fact the case.
Are those geese?
Yeah, those are my ducks. They fly
Okay.
right around sunrise. They come to my pond. They've been around. I've been out here swimming in the pool. It's a cloudy day here in New Orleans, but that's about the third or fourth time they've been in and out of my pond.
I love it. I love it. It takes me back to living in the Pacific Northwest and hearing the Canadian honkers coming through in droves.
Yeah, we got a lot of ducks down here.
Well, they're safe down there, and it's warm enough for them down there. So
Yeah, it's pretty warm today. It's not cold at all.
I think we're sitting at 33 degrees in North Texas.
Yeah, actually, it's probably about 65 here. So,
Do you have a place on the farm that I can come park my tiny house? It doesn't have to be plugged in.
it's like I said, everybody's got to decide what they want to do. You know, the funny thing is today, you may not even know this. In the Northern Hemisphere, today is the coldest day of the year. Most people think that it occurs around December 21st and 22nd because of the winter solstice.
Yeah.
But because of the specific heat of water, today is actually the coldest day of the year because of the lag effect of the water. So if 65 Fahrenheit is as cold as we're going to get, I can dig that.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm on board with that, and I'm definitely in a migratory. I'm migratory anyways, so I'm definitely in that pattern, trying to get a few things taken care of here. That one of them, I was going to come to Mexico this year, and my daughter decided in November that she was going to apply to OU and go to college in January, and the little booger got in.
Mhm.
So while everybody was in Mexico, I was like, I gotta get a computer. Yeah.
So you're different than me. I would have said, good luck.
Yeah.
Here's all the things you need to do. I'm not kidding you. I tell all my people, if you're not good enough for yourself, who are you good for? If your kid wants to go do that, great. That's the best way to teach them to be an adult.
Well,
Start adulting themselves. You know why? You're not going to be there to wipe her ass when she's in college.
Oh, absolutely. She's 16, so she's a little.
So what? I was 15 and a half when I got into college.
Graduated
when I was 19 and a half. You know what? I'm totally not about this generation of parenting. I have to say that's one thing that I totally got right from my parents is they threw me in the deep water very quickly. Why? As soon as you do that, you begin to realize you have to rely on you. You get the mindset that you're the CEO of you very, very quickly. And I think it's a catastrophic mistake. I'm not kidding you. I'm not pounding on you because of it, but I'm telling you, especially with women, this is a huge problem. You know why? Because it stops you from doing things not only with yourself, but also with your family that need to be done. You need to be pedal to the metal in this respect. And the thing is, I think your kids, I just went through this with my daughter. That's why I'm laughing.
Mm-hmm.
My son got married a couple of, about 6-7 weeks ago.
Right.
And when we were up there, my daughter got on my wife's case while we we're there saying, Mom, you're treating me like I'm still 6 years old. And I was like, can I believe what I'm hearing? And the thing is, it started a very similar discussion like this. That's why you can see, as soon as you said that, you saw that it set me off.
Yeah.
It's important. And it's one of those things that people make in conversation like we did and completely blow it off. They think, oh, it's just, no, this is a big deal. I think how we think about ourselves and our family is probably one of the things that's the most important resolution for all of us to get is that we need to do a way better job of understanding how these little things really can knock us off the path to getting better.
I definitely, yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. And it's, she graduated at 15 and I said, get a job. You will not sit. You will not. She worked in a warehouse for this last almost year. And, she decided to go to college. I said, okay, you get one term. I will help you get settled and get one term, but the rest of your education is on you. Figure it out. And that's exactly where we're at right now. She's working on getting the job that's going to pay for her room and board this term, because that was my other requirement, is you will work and pay for this whole room and board deal. They have a job on campus for you 16 hours a week. Go find it.
Right.
I'm not paying for it. It's on you.
That's the way it should be. That's how it was for me too.
Yeah.
My parents told me, if you don't get a scholarship to play sports, you're probably not going to go. I said, okay, that's all I needed to know. It's kind of like, when you get the message loud and clear, you have two choices: either evolve or adapt, or you get the same result. And the thing is, unfortunately, I think most kids these days, their parents try to be their friends too much. Right. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that. And like I said, I gave her this term. That was it. She's got 4 full years of college she's going to have to figure out. And
hopefully she takes care of it like a business trip.
She's a little bit unique as far as your typical 16-year-old or 17 or 18-year-old. She's been through some things that were a little bit different, and she's the one who initiated finishing high school early. They let her finish her junior and senior year concurrently, and she had started at 4, so she was already a year forward. And she can regurgitate enough of what I tell her and enough of the warnings about your friends are going to get sick. You're going to see this. Like, she saw me sick 10 years ago.
You almost can't go through high school or college anymore if you're that age and not see it. I mean, I've got a lot of kids who are members in that age group. And I have to tell you, it's actually stunning to hear some of the stories, around the kids that they're growing up with, and that people, it's just amazing to me that people don't realize it's staring them right in the face, and they don't even understand what the problem is.
Right.
But it's only going to get worse,
That's what I keep telling her. I'm like, you're going to see this, and you're going to see it more and more and more, and you need to be prepared for it. And, she's 16 and thinks she's bulletproof. Oh, geez. Sorry. Cat.
The cat said, I got to break this monotony up.
I think that he may have gotten into some catnip or something, because he just did a couple of random laps. And this is the first time he's managed to totally bomb one of my interviews. So I'm not too worried about it. We've done enough that I've been surprised that 15 pounds of fur has not flown through. But I definitely agree with you that there's a generational issue, and people are not thinking about all of this 5G. They're not thinking about the impact of just the lifestyle. My daughter thinks my blue blockers are ridiculous. She's like, well, I guess I would wear them if they weren't bright red. Well, would you rather be sick? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, you know where to find me when you don't want to be sick.
Well, for a 16-year-old, what she calls sick, she thinks is a cold. She doesn't understand what sick really means, like to a 20-year-old who's got EHS that can barely do anything. And that's what I'm saying. The degrees of what these kids are going to face, and what, my generation and the generation above me faced, is radically different. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason why I've been actually very, publicly said I've been very optimistic about what 5G is going to bring, because I think it's going to bring so many obvious changes that even those that are sleeping are going to have to pay attention to it. And it's already starting to happen. I would tell you, 2018, all the things that we saw being posted on social media about how bad screen time is for people, 10, 15 years ago, when I was telling people this, I was the crazy SOB on the internet saying it, and nobody believed it. Now I don't have to actually open my mouth anymore. I just have to let them see it. And then they go, maybe we should go back and listen to kind of all that science that we didn't want to learn to understand actually how this goes. Because guess what? In order to mitigate, those risks, it goes back to what I said to you earlier when we started. That's when people start to realize that you need to understand why before you're really going to change your behavior. But the thing is, social media has been a good tool for me in allowing other people to see with a different set of eyes that the stuff that I'm trying to teach people is really, really important for them to understand. And then when they're ready, I think the hardest thing, especially for not only family and my members, I just had a conversation with a guy on my forum yesterday who wants to make an app to try to wake people up. And I'm going, this doesn't make any sense to me at all, but
yeah,
he thinks it's a good idea. And I was like, well, dude, go for it. But you've got to realize you've got to reach people when you resonate. When your message resonates with them, then they'll come back and decide, okay, I need to learn a little bit more about this.
I agree. And I really thought, so my daughter had a pretty severe case of Epstein-Barr this year and was very sick, very, very sick, elevated liver enzymes. It was like, is this not a wake-up call? Do you not realize that this should be your wake-up call? Like, you don't normally have severely elevated, like worried about your liver function because you have mono.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is your wake-up call. This is exactly what I've been warning you is going to happen.
That's exactly what most of the astronauts and cosmonauts get when they're up in space. When you point that out to a kid that's got Epstein-Barr, they look at you and like, is that for real? And then you show them a couple of articles and they're like, huh. That's when all of a sudden they go, that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that this link was here. And then when you point out that what the astronauts face up there is, parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that you rarely ever get on Earth, it happens in a very short time span, then they start to go, well, does that mean potentially my Bluetooth or my wireless down here could do that over 5 or 10 years? And you go, maybe, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. It just takes a little bit longer to develop here on Earth, but it only took Scott Kelly 340 days to get trashed up in space.
Right. So for somebody like Scott Kelly, and I mean, he's kind of the extreme example, I know what your I don't want to call them protocols, get up and see the sun. So that somebody in that state really needs to do the sun. Everybody needs to do the sunrise every morning.
Scott Kelly is a little bit different. When I tell people that where you are right now is really a function of how trashed your respiratory proteins are in your mitochondria. He happens to be one of those people that is extremely trashed.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that from the reports that have come back. So I look at him as one of the people that's sitting on the deck of the Titanic.
Right.
Do you want to listen to the music, or do you want to fight like hell to get in a boat and get out of there? That's ultimately a decision that has to be made. To be quite frank with you, all the things that I've read about him,
mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure that I almost think he's resigned himself to the fact that his lifespan is going to be significantly shorter than his brother. And here's the irony. I think NASA has kind of convinced him that he knew about this before he went. If you read his book, it is absolutely an eye-opener because he says in there, before he went, I knew this is the reason why they wanted me and my brother to do this. They wanted to see the effect of two identical genomes placed in totally alien environments to see what the effect would be. The thing is, later in the book, when you hear about when he came home and what his life was like, I don't know if he'd make that trade right now. And that's the interesting thing. And the thing is, what I just said to you, most people are probably going, if they've never read the book, did he really say that? No, he didn't. It's actually between the words. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you're never going to know that until you read the book and see it for yourself with your own eyes. And then when you do see it, I almost think people who are skeptics about non-native EMF need to go read his biography very carefully and start to walk in his shoes a little bit. And the funny thing is, like when he talked about his own kids and his wife and how they viewed him when he came back, and then they saw how bad he really was, this kind of concerned them. Like, in other words, it became real for them.
Right.
That they didn't understand truly what he was doing. I mean, we always joke on social media that, 5G is kind of like the biggest experiment on humans. I don't know if I believe that. I actually think the biggest experiment we've done on humans is NASA and the space program. And we haven't put that many people up to really see the effect. And the other thing is we haven't really shared the data, truly what's happened to them, as well as we should have, because if we did, and I think NASA knows this is an alarm for people who live around other parts of the spectrum of light that we do now. Like, will they make the connection? My belief is that's part of the reason why you haven't heard too much about the things that have happened to the other astronauts. If you dig deep enough, you will find them. Right. They are out there. But I have to say, what's happened to Scott Kelly since he's come home has actually been more public than just about any of the other astronauts. And I do think it's a good test case for people to really understand what you're doing in your local environment, in your local community, as you put 3G, 4G, and 5G towers up. And the data, the hits keep coming. The NTP study just coming out. That's another brick in the wall. It's kind of like when the paper came out about melanopsin, and we now know how blue light actually destroys things called photoreceptors in our body. All of a sudden it went from the world of, oh, this is highly speculative and hyperbole, to reality.
Right.
And when the reality hits the person who you're talking to, that's when I think it hits like a ton of bricks. That's when people will begin to resonate, more with this science. That's when people are going to become more interested. Here's the real problem for those people and people like Scott Kelly. Will it be too late when you finally get the message? And that's the question that I think people have to ask. And to be quite frank with you, my own life, I guess probably being a doctor, I realized that the best prevention is to avoid any collateral damage before it happens. So once you get that message, you start to go take things a little bit more seriously. I mean, you start to practice a little bit more with the precaution principle so that you can say, look, I don't know if this is a problem, but there's enough that I do know that I'm concerned about it. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. For example, in my world, if I said to any of my nurses, look, I'd like you to take your junk out and put it right next to that fluoro machine for 20 minutes, everybody would go, I'm not doing that.
Right.
But the thing is, when you say the same thing to your daughter who's 16 years old about putting her cell phone either in her bra or her pants pocket, or you tell her boyfriend that and explain to them that it's the exact same phenomena, just the only difference is power densities and time scale to the ultimate effect. That's when people start to go, I never thought about it like that. I never thought about it at all. And maybe I need to start to think about it like that.
Right. So I understand that, if you want to, there's right now, you may not be sick. People may not be ill. They may not be thinking that they're having any results from the 5G or from their lifestyle. We all know that their mitochondria are suffering. But in that extreme case, like Scott Kelly, is there anything that's going to help him? Is there, can he do enough cold CT? Can he do enough seafood? Can he do enough sunlight? Is there anything when you've pushed that far that'll move that needle significantly?
Well, the true answer to this question is I don't know the answer to that yet. And the reason why is on the surface, this planetary surface, we've never pushed the envelope where he went. What
Right.
right now we're really bathing ourselves in RF, parts of the visible spectrum, and microwaves.
Hmm.
Uh, we do get a little bit of cosmic radiation. We do get a little bit of gamma rays. We do get a little bit of X-rays, but nowhere to the degree that he did. My personal opinion, if you were to ask me, there's always time to do something until you're dead and buried. But the more and more I look at the science, I do think there is a point of no return where you have to worry. And I think he is probably one of those people that I am concerned about. And I try to tell people all the time that I really pay attention to these things. Like I'm thinking, you could probably see I'm hedging my bets here a little bit. I have a lot of patients who have some significant diseases,
Hmm.
and I'm very, very optimistic for them. But if I was absolutely to sit down and discuss things with them, I think they need to do extraordinary things that none of them are willing to do to save themselves. And in my opinion, I think you have to get to the point yourself where you realize that you're in deep. Like if you've got multiple sclerosis, you're in a wheelchair, and this has happened over the last 5 to 10 years, you've got a duty to yourself to get close to the equator. And, this probably won't be a popular thing to say, especially on a recorded video. I look at somebody like Terry Walls as somebody who is actually hindering my message. The reason why, she posts almost every day about eating colorful vegetables and how it's going to fix this quantum problem.
Mm.
And many of the people out there that follow her believe that she's fixed her problem. She hasn't fixed her problem at all. She still has the disease. She still lives at a high latitude, practices in a university-based setting. Yeah, she's gotten better. No question about it. Want to clap for her. She's leading people down the right path. The problem is she's not nearly far enough down the path for that person that's in a wheelchair, that's a train wreck,
Right.
kind of like Scott Kelly is. And the thing is, when I talk about these kind of things publicly, I don't think people kind of dig it too much, to be quite frank with you. I think a lot of people think that it's sour grapes, it's arrogant, it's not kind. I'm not in this business.
You're not a baker. I know. You ain't sugarcoating nothing.
Well, the thing is, when you're a physician and you know better than a lot of other people do, you have kind of a duty to kind of share that with other people. And that's the reason why this kind of discussion we're having right now, for me, especially this morning, is kind of interesting, because it is a nuanced discussion between a person like Scott Kelly, someone like Terry Walls, and then say somebody who's in my office who's in a wheelchair, or, just channeling. I was thinking about this morning. I don't know why. Maybe this is the reason why the universe was talking to me. I was thinking about Steve Gleason. He used to play for the Saints. And, I'm getting ready to go down to talk to the New Orleans City Council about 5G that's here. And most of them have no idea that the zip code that Steve lived in when he was playing for the Saints was one of the first ones that went to higher power densities around while he was an NFL player. And the crazy thing is that fewer of them realize that we've known about this data. And how do we know about it? We found out about it in hospitals and M&Ms, where we saw certain people from certain zip codes would get sicker than other people. But no one, either on the Saints, no one in the NFL, no one in the New Orleans City Council, nobody in the hospitals where this information was put together has still, to this day, put 2 and 2 together.
Right.
To me, that's a huge problem. That's the reason why things like this really matter, because if we're going to get true solutions to these problems, we need to become really more observant of nature. And we're not. That's one of the big problems with humans, is that we really don't observe as well as we should.
Well, we've not migrated physically, but we've just migrated away from that, grounded to the earth, living, living on the land. And I just, for me, it's baffling that people don't get it.
Well, the more disconnected you are from nature, the less intuitive you are. The
Right.
less intuitive you are, the less you observe. So I think that that message is clearly there. But I think people, when you say it, they think, oh, well, he's talking about somebody else. No, I'm talking about you if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
And that's the real irony, that we somehow think that we're divorced from the laws of nature when we're subject to them, just like every living thing around here is. And it's amazing how ignorant we are of the truth. you know um, the truth of some of these words, it's almost a moral failing that's worse than lying when you really look at it. I mean, at least a liar knows the truth and takes certain responsibilities in the act of knowingly lying, but willfully ignoring avoids even that kind of thinking. And the crazy thing is, um, we are complete subjects to our cognitive bias. And I hate to say this, one of the major trends that I think is out in technology that nobody is talking about right now, I just started talking about it this week, is the use of algorithms, and how algorithms, because they are mathematical decision-making processes, have actually usurped humans' power even greater, who use the electromagnetic spectrum to communicate, because you don't realize that they slowly erode your ability to be observant. In other words, you just assume everything that you've read on your favorite website or your favorite news outlet or even your favorite journal is not subject to the scrubbing that goes on with an algorithm. And it turns out it is. And the reason why algorithms are so dangerous is because they're artificial, intelligent, mathematic equations that work so much faster than the human brain, that the people who have developed them have realized that whoever makes the decision first controls the narrative.
Right.
And the thing is, I really don't believe that most people that are out there on social media, let's just use that because that's probably the one place that everybody knows that algorithms are operational. We all saw it with the last presidential election. I don't think people really truly understand how it worked. But the point that I'm trying to make to people is that timing. What did I just say? If you hit the replay button on this, timing really matters when it comes to algorithms. What has Jack said about circadian biology, nature, and light? That timing really matters with that as well. And see, that's the connection. People don't realize that algorithms are taking advantage of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. The same thing is true with how we use nature and the choices that we make around it. And I don't think people see that parallel between these two things. And the funny thing is, this is the cool thing when you have the physics perspective, is you start to see light in a totally different way than most other people that you're talking to. Right. And when you try to explain it to people from your perspective, when they don't understand it, you're tapping their blind spot, their Dunning-Kruger effect. They look at you like you're crazy.
Yes.
Until the environment all around them crashes and they start to realize, what that guy said 5 or 6 years ago is actually true. And I guess what I try to be is people's kind of wake-up call, so that they start to think about these kind of things before they're afflicted by them. And that's the tough part. The tough part is most people have no clue that they're afflicted by these things every single day of their lives these days. And they have no idea how it's affecting their biology. If I was to say to somebody on a podcast, how the Facebook algorithm truly affects you, most people in the tech world would go a totally different way than what I'm talking about here. And I'm telling you that the speed of decisions actually changes the narrative and what people believe. And the thing is, most people are shocked to hear that. I mean, that's actually how the spectrum of light works. And, if you don't believe me, put your iPhone on and see when you put it on, the faster, what are we talking about when we go 1G to 5G? We're talking about speed, aren't we?
Right.
It's the exact same thing. So if you can get your next Netflix video faster, that Netflix video can change how you believe quicker than you can imagine. That's really the goal of Netflix. You don't realize it, but that's truly the goal. And the thing is, once they can control how you think about different things, then you become more sensitive to other programming that is delivered to you via screens or through the plasma conductive ionosphere around us in markedly different ways. And it turns out that's the reason why, like your daughter, next time you go visit your daughter in college, you'll have the observation that her girlfriends will be in the same room or in the same area, and they'll text each other and besides talking to each other. And the reason why I bring this up, hopefully you understand this, and hopefully everybody who out there understands why this is happening, is the connection they make over the phone is faster than the connection they can make directly to each other. That's the reason they're defaulting to it. And the thing is, nobody realizes it. Everybody sees that kids do this. All you have to do is go out on a Saturday night in any city, and you'll see people with their phones on the table while they're having dinner, and immediately they'll default to their phone when the conversation stops. And the connection is made through the phone. Nobody, when you point it out to people, they don't realize that they need that speed, the rapidity to keep the dopamine levels as high as they possibly can to stay engaged with their life. And it turns out that when you make a connection with a person, since the rapidity and the speed of connection is not what it is through artificial intelligence, you decide that you'd rather have the faster than the slower. And if people don't really get this, they're really missing the boat on really what's going on to us on an evolutionary basis. That's how radical communication is changing. I'm going to tell you, what we just discussed is a microcosm of what Gutenberg did with the printing press. And none of us realize this electronic, Gutenberg press is going to have massive evolutionary implications in the future. Most of those implications are going to be tied to mitochondrial biology. But I don't expect most of the obedient idiots listening to this that are going to understand that. But hopefully 5, 6, 7 years from now, people may put this on and listen to it and say, I thought when you said this in 2019, this was crazy talk, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe he was reading the tea leaves from a totally different perspective. Because I say to people all the time, when you see these things happen in your environment, explain. Most people can't explain why 2 kids will text over the phone. They really don't. They just think it's a behavioral issue. And it turns out it's actually not. It's actually, we have changed the wiring in our brains because we need to operate on a faster level. Everything about us is tied to the electromagnetic environment. That's what your brain reacts to. Your mitochondria are an electromagnetic antenna. And they know that if they can get data faster some way, they're going to default to that, even if it hurts the survival of the species. That's the crazy part.
I get that. And it almost sickens me. I mean, I look at these kids and they cannot actually communicate to each other, period. If it's not electronic, they don't know how to have conversations.
Well, I would say to you that they know how to do it. They know how to do it in their world. I think you're missing the bigger point here. The bigger point is we've created an artificial environment for them. I mean, right now, life for a kid has become the largest virtual reality game on the planet. And their parents don't realize it. And the thing is, you no longer need to put, Google's iPhone and that thing on your face. It's happening all around you right now. And people don't realize it. They really don't realize that life has become virtual reality inside a reality. And when people in physics, you hear people talk about multiverses, this is a perfect example of exactly how a multiverse really happens. I used to tell people that, a multiverse is a choice. You can change your mind to do something different. That would change reality around you. Here's a perfect example of how actually technology does it for you way below your perception level before you even consider it, as an option. And the crazy thing is, our biology is designed to react to it in an adaptive way. And it turns out our bodies are telling us that we want faster communication speeds. That's the crazy part.
Right.
And the problem is we haven't evolved the protective mechanisms yet that'll allow us to do this. That's really what the issue is. And what happens, the damage or the change that it will occur is going to lead to faster epigenetic changes. In fact, I told my members at my member event in Mexico this thing that, I tend to focus on podcasts talking about the bad stuff in 5G. I shared with them a really good thing. I said, one of the things I expect to happen is that we're going to have people that have more sixth sense in the 5G world. In other words, they're going to be able to connect in ways that other people can't. There's going to be more idiot savants and people with savant behavior. And don't you think that one of my members who was there actually had some of these abilities, and I made her come to the Q&A and she discussed it for everybody to hear. And they were absolutely stunned by it.
I saw part of that clip from the pool in Mexico about that. Yeah.
What he did to one of my other non-member spouses blew people away. And the point that I try to make to people is, why did Jack know this was going to happen? It goes back to the point that we're talking now. When you truly understand how the light spectrum works to change our biology through epigenetics, it's not a big stretch to understand how this kind of stuff's going to happen. Most of the stuff we're going to focus in on, because our attention, especially in the healthcare community, is to worry about the bad stuff. There's actually going to be some good collateral effects from this. The problem is, are we going to outstrip our ability on a population basis? Are we going to hand select, the new breed of humans? I actually think it's already going on. I think that's one of the amazing things that I find about Twitter. I think Twitter is the place that you're going to find the most rapid adapters. I'll give you a perfect example. I think the new breed of human is going to be somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk. And the reason why, he is basically telling people that if you're stuck in the old model and you're not doing things using technology now, you are going to get taken to the woodshed. Every step of the road that he's been on for the last 15 years, he's been right. The thing is, he's not yet affected by the downsides of technology. He's only been affected by the good things. So people who follow him think that everybody will be like Gary. And it turns out that when people do what Gary tries to do, many of them get sick. And Elon Musk is another good example of this. He was just on 60 Minutes not that long ago and told everybody that sleep's overrated. You don't need that much of it. And the thing is, even with him, people don't realize that his behavior has radically changed in the last 5 or 6 years. But has that stopped him from being highly innovative to doing things that will probably change the world to a totally different trajectory? No, it's not. In fact, this is evidence of evolution occurring right under our noses without us even being able to see it. And the thing is, that's what makes social media, to me, very interesting. I think it's become an experiment, or a laboratory experiment, that we actually can see in real time. The problem is, you have to be dialed into the perspective to understand really what's going on around. And I don't think a lot of people are. I think when your focus is too much on the bad sides, you actually don't see some of the good things that happen from it. Conversely, I think if you're a follower of Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, or or Elon Musk, you think only good things can happen and you're not aware of the bad. When it really turns out the way nature works, you have to understand the good and the bad to really make sense of truly what's going on around you.
There's a balance, the yin and the yang. There's, you can't have one without the other. There's gonna be some, even if it's just the enlightenment of few.
Physics always brings it back. For every reaction, there is another reaction.
Right.
And we need to understand that. And I don't think that we're really doing a good job of that all the way around. We need to really, truly be tapped in and be observant. That the crazy part is if the artificial intelligence world that these guys work in becomes their main driver, they will be changed much more quickly to build the world that they see fit. The thing is, they're not going to see the world around them until that world comes crashing down. I mean, a perfect example, that would be Steve Jobs.
Right.
You know, he got sick. Or, you know, Paul Allen, who just died. The key is they're living lives like blue stars. They burn brightly. They do and accomplish a lot of things, but their lifespan is not what they expected. And I think when they get sick, it stuns them a little bit. But it hasn't stopped the people that have enabled them to do what they do, and also the people they have enabled. Like, in other words, their followers.
Right.
They become pretty hardcore about this. I just think I sit in a pretty unique seat because my specialty is heavily driven by technology, but yet I'm sitting out here with you in the middle of a front coming through in New Orleans. As the clouds go, the sun comes, connected to nature, talking on a device that potentially can limit my life just like a fluoro machine can in surgery.
Right.
And the thing is, I don't not use the fluoro machine in surgery when I need it, just as I'm telling you that you can use technology as long as you keep your connection to nature very healthy and intact. That's the key. I don't like the word balance because I don't believe nature uses a balance. I think nature is heavily imbalanced, and her cognitive bias should be the same as ours. It's towards her. That's
Right.
the EMF that we are supposed to abuse. Okay? That's the one, if you look at these chemicals in your body and your brain called POMC, when you see that we make chemicals, we make opioids from being in the sun. We make a chemical called alpha MSH that makes beta endorphin. You start to go, wait a minute, nature built us to be addicted to her. That's all you need to know. I mean, and when you understand that, maybe then you can understand why, if you're on a bender watching the Housewives of New York for 3 days, there's a problem. Or if you're watching Gary V videos, or, you know, whomever you want
Right.
to put out there as an example, you can understand how these things happen. That's part of the reason why I've told many people who follow me that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. The people who believe Tony Robbins, believe Gary Vee, and believe Dave Asprey, believe those people, you're not going to change their opinion. And you know what? Nor should you. I just got into a big debate with the low carb, high fat guys on Twitter a couple days ago. And I said, who cares? Why do you care what the Lancet is trying to tell people to become vegan all over the world? If they want to do it, let them do it. Because you know what? Evolution has a solution for it. It's called natural selection.
Right.
Why do you want to impose your beliefs about what you should eat or how you should use the spectrum if evolution has a plan for it? And the crazier part of the situation, from my perspective, why do I do what I do? I look at it as informed consent. You need to know what you're doing by utilizing this part of the spectrum. Once you understand it, then you have a duty to yourself to make a contract with yourself. Okay, how am I going to do this? That to me is the role of people who really do get it. It's kind of like, if you don't have informed consent for your use of technology, and let's face it, the people who are making this stuff, there's no informed consent at all. It's the Wild West. You use it because you're addicted to it. It's as simple as that. And the same thing is true with the opiate crisis that's out there. It's amazing to me that people don't realize that when people are subtracted from nature, it's far easier for them to become addicted to drugs because of this connection I told you about, beta endorphin in your brain. If you can't make your endogenous stuff, you're going to seek exogenous stuff to get it. And if you happen to interact with a doctor because, say, you can't sleep, or you had back surgery, or I don't know, you had something wrong with your tooth and they gave you Lortab 5, and all of a sudden within 3 months you went up to Lortab 10 and you're taking it every 2 hours, okay. But that's because you're watching Jerry Springer reruns all the time. That's the reason this is happening. And eventually, if you do this long enough, some of you will turn out like Elon Musk or Gary Vaynerchuk and think there's no problems. But some of you will turn out like Anthony Bourdain. Some of you will turn out like Chester Bennington. Some of you will turn out like Kate Spade. And then it should be obvious to people why this is happening. The good and the bad can happen. Why? Because evolution causes adaptation and reaction. There will be good and bad. The key is there's going to be more bad than good. That's the way she works. She's looking to select out the next generation of hominids with what we are doing to ourselves. And I just don't think people have this perspective. I really don't.
I can see where the evolution aspect, because we've been taught that evolution takes so long, where people aren't understanding that at the speed that we are going as a society. I mean, you just look at the last 100 years.
Evolution happens at the speed of light. Anybody who thinks otherwise is out of their mind. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding you when I say that. I have a very good religious friend. We have this kind of discussion where we're sitting down over a glass of wine, and he goes, well, how come I don't see evolution going on around me? And guess what?
How could you not?
Well, this discussion is what usually comes from it. And I can tell you, when I have it with him, he falls back in his chair and he's like, how come I don't see this? I said, because you're not wanting to see it. The message doesn't resonate with you, A, because you don't believe in evolution, and B, the crazy thing is you're seeing it happen all around you. It's happening to your own kids in your own house. And when I pointed it out to him that way, I will tell you that he's now paying big time attention to this. And, for him, I think that the thing that resonated with him, when I really had a serious discussion with him, what Genesis 1:1 through 1:5 really means through this optic, this is when he changed. This is when he's like, I need to pay more attention to this. I'm like, yeah, you do. And you know what? That to me is what informed consent is. When your friends and family who you care about, you can get to some type of level where you're having a molecular resonance frequency with them so that they can understand where you're coming from, then you've done something good with that relationship. I attempt to do it through social media, through these podcasts. I mean, part of the reason we're doing this podcast is because one of my members at the member event told me that I need to do more podcasts in 2019 because I don't want to do them. There's a lot of people who ask me to do podcasts, and I refuse to do it because I know they're going to ask me the same questions about food and exercise, which I'm sick and tired of talking about. Yeah. The stuff we're talking about right now, to me, is far more important than anything that surrounds food or exercise. Why? Because it's actually how evolution is occurring around you right now, below your ability to perceive it at a submolecular quantum level.
Right.
Evolution happens at the speed of light. And that means that the footprints, the electromagnetic footprints, are all around you. The key is, do you see it?
I'm definitely one who sees it. Like I said, I've been telling people for 20 years that I was solar powered and that sunscreen was awful. And people have been looking at me like my hair's been on fire for all of these years. And, I proved it with my own health that I needed the sun. Like I was sick and then I moved to and I was less sick. And I even took a more stressful job but it put me for a crazy amount of hours, but it put me outside. And I had been following you for a while, and I would literally standing outside one day, no sunglasses on. And I went, I feel better. I have a highly stressful job. I'm working crazy hours. I'm, probably not eating as well as I should, but somehow my energy, my sleep, and oh my God, I'm spending 5 more hours a day outside than I was.
I tell everybody, especially in the food and exercise world, you can make a lot of mistakes if you just fix that one problem.
Right.
And people just don't believe it. Every time I go past a Gold's Gym, I look in there and I'm going, these people are beating the snot out of themselves. And if you ask every single one of them, most of them don't get the benefits that they really are looking for. I'm like, look, just do the same stuff outside.
Right.
If you just do that, you will see tremendous change. If you just eat your lunch outside, if you just eat your breakfast outside, kind of like what we're doing now, if you just do your podcast outside, it makes a difference. You may not realize the difference that it makes in that moment, but when you string these events together consistently over time, you start to see the needle move. The problem is most of the food gurus out there and the supplement gurus, they can't explain to you how it happens. Because they can't explain it, this is the reason they don't focus on it.
Right.
And the thing is, I can explain it. I can explain to you exactly why maintaining the engine in your Ferrari is far more important than the fuel source is.
Right.
It's not that hard to get. The analogy works with cars and it works with us. The difference between cars, you need a mechanic to keep them going. All you need is autophagy and apoptosis to fix yours. And it turns out that works when you're addicted to the EMFs that are in the environment, not the ones that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And people look at me like my hair is on fire when I say, even this time of year, if I want to go for a run, and I say run very loosely, it's a slow jog, but if I want to go for a run, I'm going to go out early in the morning in a tank top and shorts and my super thin little shoes. And I'm going to go be outside. I don't want to do that inside. I feel no value from a treadmill. I feel like I'm robbed of whatever mind clearing that I would have gotten had I been outside. It's just not the same.
Well, that's the message that we need most people to get. If they just do that and they make the connection, kind of like I did this morning, I tell everybody, if you see every sunrise the rest of your life, you've solved about 80% of your problems.
Right.
And like today, as a perfect example, the sunrise here was behind dense clouded sky.
Yeah.
It even started to tinkle and rain a little bit, and I was in the pool. People don't realize that's a red light day. You're getting way more red light at that time, and that's actually what you want out of the AM light. And here's the irony. People don't realize that that's the benefit. Well, now that we've been sitting here, several of the clouds are broken. The front is moved through. The sun is out. I'm getting the benefit of doing that. Now, if I was inside, which I thought I was going to do, I was like, no. And I was going to put my red light on in there while we did the podcast. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I spent the whole morning out here.
Right.
I'm going to come out here and do this. And I don't care if it doesn't work. Why? I had a sneaking suspicion that this is what we were going to talk about. Why? Because it's been on my mind. It's been on my mind for the last 48 hours. It's been on my mind since, I talked to that person on Matt Maruka's page about algorithms and about how these electromagnetic decision choices really, really change things at a level that's so below most people's ability to understand that it's something that needs to be talked about. Because I can tell you, I don't think I've ever talked about this. Ever.
Well, I really wanted to do this from the pool outside. It's 32 degrees and the pool is 50. I think I would have had hypothermia by now. So, no. But I thought about it. When I thought the weather was going to be a little warmer.
My pool water is actually pretty cold too. It's probably about 55 degrees, but I was able to stay in it. But my ambient temperature here is not too bad.
Yeah.
But this morning it was pretty chilly, but the weather changes here pretty fast.
Hmm.
We'll have a nice day today. It'll get up to about 70, 75. Um, that's why I said, when I think about the poor people that are, in Canada right now,
No, thank you.
and it's minus 30, you start to go, if they were out in nature, they'd get a benefit from it, but none
Hmm.
of them are out there. They're sitting in
Right.
front of a fire doing different things. Um, but it's just one of those things. We just got to get people to realize it's not that hard to tap into your ancestral self again. Your ancestral self wants you outside. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter how shitty the weather is outside. I mean, wild animals have to go into it, and you should not be afraid to go into it either. You shouldn't.
I can tell you that the running in the cold has changed my ability to be out in the cold. Like I can't even well, I can't explain it. I used to be extremely intolerant to cold. Raynaud's and yeah, just I'm an H1 haliotype. I'm, mostly Irish. I yeah, I was not adapted even in the living in the Pacific Northwest, never really adapted to being in the cold. And when I get out and run, I'm so much more tolerant. I'm so much more comfortable. I don't have that reaction where I want to go inside immediately. You
Yeah.
can adapt.
No, I mean, the thing is, you're built with that haplotype, you're built to adapt to the cold, but it does take, I don't want people to think they can jump into 50-degree water right off the bat. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. I think what you need to understand is the program is built, inside of you. You just need to know how to do it.
I had a friend doing face dunks in my pool just the other night.
Yeah, I
Like, this
mean,
is where it starts. Put your face in it.
you can do it. You can do it in your bathroom, in your house, once you understand how to do it.
Yeah.
The key thing is you have to do, those are the things that we're talking about with Scott Kelly before. These are the kind of things that he needs to learn about and do that I know he's not doing, and, when you adapt a lifestyle that allows you to use parts of the spectrum that, our ancestors never used, you need to do some of these extraordinary things to protect yourself, you know, and most of the social media gurus and on food and supplements, they try to tell us, especially in the paleo community, we
Yeah.
inherited the earth from our ancestors and it's that important. But I would submit that we borrowed it actually from our kids,
Right.
and we're changing it. And we're changing it in ways that I don't think many of us realize have big implications, positive and negative. Evolution is driving this train. Natural selection is in operation. Um, if you're one of those people that's sick right now, that's a sign from evolution. You need to change what you're doing in your environment. So I think it's great that you put somebody in your pool and you're teaching them these things.
Anybody who will listen, and I have known for many years. I've been a massage therapist, a licensed massage therapist for over 10 years, and people are resistant to change. And I could give them all of the knowledge, and I've been dispensing nuggets for years about sunscreen and about being solar powered, and how I believe that these two hands that I have on my body are a healing source, whether that be I have an intuitive ability to find the knot in your back. You say your back hurts and I can immediately just put my thumb on it and I'm like, right there. And they're like, how do you do that? I just do. This
Well,
is what I do. I
change
feel it.
change is one of those things that I think the more you study it, the better you become at it. I told people, I've said it many, many times on Twitter. I think it's ironic that those who accept fears in their life are the ones that adapt to change the best. And it turns out those people who tweet, whose tweets show that they're frozen in a bias, are completely unaware they possess a mind that can't change a damn thing.
Right.
And the thing is, once you understand this about change, that it's okay to run to things that scare you. It's actually okay. Like, wounds create our wisdom. They really do.
Right.
And the thing is, you're never gonna move off your mark unless you do things differently in the future. That's the reason why, we do things differently in the future when we're ill in the present. That's people who get the positive adaptation from the environment get. They get it in a big way.
I just can't agree with you more. I just really feel like we're going in a direction, and you can choose your path. It's a choose your own adventure. And if you want to go down that path where you live in New York City and you have a cell phone in your pocket all the time, it's a choice. 100% it's a choice.
Right. No,
and then there's people like you who, I loved that little clip that I think Matt was doing a live, and you were talking about, you were at the farm at the member event before you all went to Mexico, about nobody's cell phones really work there. The trees are big and tall. They're, go hug the tree. And I have, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So the jokes about being a tree hugger and the fact that I'm, I typically make my own skincare products, and, oh, you're just a tree hugging hippie. It's just like, yeah, but when was the last time you put your hands in the ground and you really felt it? Like, do you get it? Do you connect when you connect?
I think when people came here for the open house, I think they were a little bit stunned. In fact, one of my long-term members, who's a laser physicist, he was like, I can't believe how low the signal is here. And I'm like, that's the reason why the place was built. That's the reason why I selected it. The thing is, people don't believe that even within a toxic soup, but there are still spots out there that you can actually find that still work. And you just need to realize that, all the trees around here are protecting my lateral wings. I don't have to worry about that spot right down there because I got 26 miles of lakefront between me and New Orleans. So there's not going to be anybody going that way. My only open protection is from above. And the thing is, I built the place so that when Elon puts, his SpaceX satellites there, I got that covered too.
Right.
And the thing is, here we are. I live 26, 27 miles away from a 5G city. And I brought people here to show them what can be done. And the thing is, it's one thing to tell people, but it's a totally different thing to show people.
Right.
And when people see it, and this particular guy has got a family member who's really afflicted badly with electro hypersensitivity. And he was just like, I can't believe, that this is actually possible right here. And this is a guy that even called me and said, hey, that Noah's got a radar antenna that's literally in the same town you're thinking about building the farm? I'm like, yep, doesn't matter. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, already tested. Yeah, I said, you don't think that I've thought about this?
Right.
And I said, everything here is tested. The antenna is a moot point. And the reason why is because I'm surrounded by trees that are 150 and 200 feet tall.
Right.
They can't get in. And when I was building this place, the contractors, all of them were totally pissed off because they couldn't get anything. They used to like to listen to Pandora. They'd get one song and then it would go away. They couldn't get anything. And when they worked in the clinic, because when we put the roof on it, as soon as you go underneath it, nothing from above comes through. Nothing.
I live in a house with a metal roof, and the signal here, we're hooked to Ethernet right now because you're not going to get anything in here. And
right.
I toy with the idea of putting a metal roof on my tiny house. I got to finish the inside first. I'm going to have a composting toilet. I'm going to have the ability to plug in or not. It's highly insulated, and I will tow it wherever I need to be.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I think that's probably what a lot of people in the future are going to wind up doing. But most people don't have that mindset yet. They have, no, look, I need to put my roots down. This is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. I have to do this for my job, this and that. It's going to get to a point where you're going to get so sick that you're going to realize that all of those things really are not that important.
I've already been that sick. And that's exactly how I got to this point. It's like, I can't do that anymore. I will not go back to feeling like I cannot get out of bed every day, I
Or
won't do it.
a lot of people, I see it on Facebook all the time, that when you tell them you need to call a realtor, they look at you like, I can't do that. And say, then, okay, enjoy your decision to be sick. Because
Right.
really choosing to be sick in this environment, it's truly a choice. And
Yeah.
people hate this when I say it. I mean, they absolutely hate it, but it's the truth. Just the corollary is optimal wellness is also a choice. You have
Right.
to do, it goes back to what we talked about an hour ago with Scott Kelly. He's got to make some extraordinary choices in
Right.
order to try to recapture and demethylate, his genome. Is it doable? I believe it is doable based on what I know. Do I believe that he knows how to do it, or any of the people around him that enabled him to go up for 340 days? No, I have zero belief that they know what they're doing.
In my head, I keep hearing Bruce Willis